10 things I wish I knew before going to Tulum. If this is your first time in Tulum, stay with me until the end of this video because these 10 things may save you a lot of time and money. So let's jump right into it. Number 10, there is no public transportation. And not just public, there is no transportation at all. I'm gonna get into that. Wait a minute, because you might say, oh, there is some transportation. I'm gonna talk about that. So there is no transportation and you have no other option if you want to move around to take a taxi. And I will tell you again why I said that, because you may say, oh, there's other options as well. I'm going to tell you why later in this video. So if you take a taxi because you're kind of forced, you have no other option, you have to take a taxi. Taxis take a huge advantage of the fact there is no alternative. So if you want to get from your hotel to Zona Hotelera or to any other place, you have to use a taxi. And taxis overcharge tourists. Like, the rates are insane. They're not just Mexican, they're not even American. Even for American rates, they're still expensive. Expect to get ripped off. And also, there is no price table. There's no fixed rate and prices. If they show you like kind of a table with prices, that's not true. That is just for tourists. And again, if you ask like 10 different drivers, how much is it, like from here, the point you're at, to my hotel, they're gonna tell you 10 different rates. So everyone charges whatever they want. I don't know what their criteria are. Maybe the way that you look, the way you talk, the way you're dressed. I have no idea. How touristy you look, I don't know. But I heard so many different rates for the same distance, like all the time I was in Tulum. And that was frustrating because every single day, everyone was trying consistently and constantly trying to scam me. That's frustrating because I get it. I have talked about scams in another video. And I say, as a tourist, because I'm on vacation and I want to have a great time, I don't care. Like, I'm that stupid that I can agree to get scammed. I can agree on that because, okay, I'm a tourist, yeah, rip me off. They do that everywhere. But in Mexico, and especially in Tulum and Cancun, the scams are on a different level. Like, they're completely rip-offs. And the taxis, I think, is the number one scam in Tulum because there's no alternative. So let's talk about the alternatives real quick. There is not a public bus, but there are I think they're private buses, these small vehicles, which are called colectivos. So I waved at two colectivos that they were going to my destination. I asked to get in there, but the driver refused both times. They don't take tourists. Although they serve people who want to reach their destination, they don't take tourists because they don't want to mess with the taxis, I guess, the taxi drivers, which makes sense. But again, I stopped you. You stopped. You picked people that were waiting right next to me, and you didn't pick me because I'm a tourist. So if that's not a scam, that I don't know what is. So the next one is that it's not walkable nor bikeable. That's why I told you there's no alternative. So during the last 2 days on my vacation in Tulum, I rented a bike because I was done. I was so over the scams. I couldn't find a taxi with normal rates. Again, touristy rates, and everybody was consistently all the time trying to scam me. And I was so fed up with that. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a bike. And I took a bike for 2 days. The first day I went to the Cenotes, I did a cenote tour, and I went to downtown Tulum. And the second day I used the bike. I biked all the way to Zona Hotelera. So the hotel that I was staying at was called Kukum Hotel, and it was a bit far away both from Zona Hotelera and from downtown Tulum. And you know, I was really surprised because I'm in a decent physical condition. And when I say it's not bikeable, it is not. Especially with the heat. It was not manageable. It was a disaster. Like, it's not bikeable. And if you plan doing that every single day, you're gonna get exhausted. And also, you can't bike at night. Like, you can bike during the day. Yes, it's going to be exhausting, but at the end of the day, you're gonna reach your destination cheaper. But you can't do it at night because there is no actual road for bikes. There's only one that leads from downtown Tulum to Zona Hotelera. But then the streets are so narrow and it's so dangerous, and you never know. I mean, I wouldn't risk taking a bike at night, you never know. So again, you have to depend on taxis. The next one is about the day bars, the day clubs. And when I went there during my whole stay in Tulum, every single day club was empty. And when I say empty, I'm like dead empty. And I'm talking about the most famous day clubs like Tantra and Taboo. As you see here, they were empty. And you know why? It makes sense. Because these places charge an arm and a leg for the food, for the drinks, for the sunbeds. Because you might say, oh, it was a dead season, it wasn't that packed with tourists, it wasn't that crowded. No, that was not the case. There were plenty of tourists. But guess what? Because everybody is aware of these scams and how they overcharge tourists in these places, everyone was just putting the towel on the beach, enjoying the sun, taking photos, taking videos, enjoying the sea without paying a dime. And to be honest, that's the result. If you overcharge tourists for decades, it's going to happen eventually, because being a tourist, it doesn't mean that you're dumb or you haven't worked hard for your money. You have saved money for this trip. You are working hard for this money and you expect to find reasonable prices. Again, touristy rates, I agree, but not Tulumish rates. So that's why the places were empty. And actually the staff that was there, the managers and the business owner, were literally begging us to get into the day club just to have a drink. Like, they were like, oh, come on in, no minimum spending. There's no minimum spending. And I'm like, yeah, of course, like, that's the bare minimum. If they had normal touristy rates, all these places would be full of people and partying, because the parties were pretty dead. So you have to keep that in mind if you're a party person. Because of the rate, there are no more day parties in Tulum. So let's talk about the beach. Because we're talking about a tourist destination, we're talking about Tulum, and all you think about is this crystal clear waters and swimming and snorkeling. But this may disappoint you again, because the beach is not that great, especially the northern part of the beach. Like, the water was not clear at all. It was very blurry and you couldn't even see inside the water. Even if you tried to do snorkeling, the water isn't crystal clear. And again, it depends on what you're used to. Like, if you're, for example, from a place that doesn't have crystal clear waters, or if you haven't traveled that much, maybe Tulum may be fine to you, it may be cool. So about the beaches, there were three main problems. The first one was that the water was not crystal clear. The second one is about the seaweed. You've all heard about that. Like, there were huge amounts of seaweed in almost every beach. Like, it was pretty annoying. Like, in most places, like Tantra and Tulum, like the bar restaurants, right in front of the restaurants, the staff used to clean the seaweed. But when we say clean, we don't mean clean. You know what they do? They just get rid of the seaweed and they dump it to the next beach. So the next beach is going to have a huge pile of seaweed. So it's really annoying. Like, they don't do anything about the seaweed. Again, it gets out from the sea. What can you do? But it's not what you expect as a tourist. And the third problem is the microplastic. That really broke my heart. Because guys, when people talk about the environment and the plastic straws, like, listen to them. Take a look at this footage. Can you see here the microplastic? This is all the outcome of plastic straws. The sand is so beautiful, but all these colorful little pieces are plastic. And this is so sad because it was everywhere. All this microplastic was everywhere. So I'm really glad that now we're more eco-friendly aware and environmentally aware, and we don't use plastic that much anymore, because it was really heartbreaking. The next one is, don't expect luxury services, even at 5-star hotels. So my experience, I stayed at Cocoon Hotel, which was a 5-star hotel, but it was nothing like a 5-star hotel. It wasn't even a 3-star hotel, I would say, because the services were not that great. There wasn't even a breakfast. there was no breakfast. Like which hotel, like especially 5-star hotel, has no breakfast? If you wanted to order breakfast, they used to deliver from a nearby restaurant and you got the breakfast in your room, which you could do by yourself if you just downloaded an app, like the same app that they use to order food. It doesn't make any sense. And I found out that the staff wasn't that helpful. Plus, they tried to scam me again. Can you imagine? At a 5-star hotel. Like, I was done with Tulum at that point. I was like, I'm not coming back in here. That was insane. So the general vibe in Tulum is that eco-friendly. We don't use air conditioning that much for environmental purposes, but in my opinion, this is all BS because they don't want to invest in luxury services and they want to be called a 5-star hotel without being an actual 5-star hotel, if that makes sense. So in my opinion, if you want to book a hotel in Tulum, try to find a 3-star hotel because you're gonna get the same services with a 4-star or a 5-star hotel and you're going to pay less. So the next one is about the rates. And I'm not going to say that it was expensive because there's no word like cheap and expensive. Price comes from value and it comes from comparison. So what I will say is that after 15 years that I have been traveling the world and I've been to most party places and luxury places, as I told you before, I can compare the prices and the rates to the value and the prices that I got from respective luxury and party places. For example, like Saint-Tropez in France, or Cannes in France, or even Monaco, or Ibiza in Spain, or Mykonos in Greece. So every single place of these mentioned places, the rates were lower than Tulum. And the services, the luxury services that you got were way higher than Tulum. So when I say the prices and the rates are high, Tulum is expensive, it doesn't come from a stingy point of view because I had seen a ton of videos before going to Tulum because I always do research like crazy. I watch every single video out there. I read every travel guide. I have seen videos talking about how expensive Tulum is. And you know what? People were disagreeing so much and they were calling the person who talked about that stingy. That's not the case. I'm not stingy. I'm willing to pay a lot. And when I say a lot, I have spent thousands of dollars during these 15 years on luxury vacation and on partying. And I don't mind if I get the value. So that's why there's not such thing as expensive or cheap. It's what you pay for and what you get. So Tulum, you pay an arm and a leg and you don't get the value. You don't get that service that you pay for. So it's not worth it. When I was in Saint-Tropez, for example, I'm gonna show you this footage. This is from a bar restaurant and a club restaurant actually, which is called L'Opera, and it's one of the most exclusive places in Saint-Tropez. It's iconic, the show goes on, it never stops. The food was delicious, amazing cocktails, and of course after dinner, you can stay and party because it turns into a nightclub without paying an extra dime. You don't pay for the show, you don't pay for the party, you just pay for the food. And the rates were so much lower compared to Tulum. Prices depend on comparison and value. So when we're talking about Tulum being overrated, that means that we've seen better. The next thing is that there aren't fixed rates, as I told you before, and not just that, but people get a commission. And that's what another thing that I didn't like about that 5-star hotel that I was staying at, because every time I tried to call a taxi from the hotel, I went to the reception and I asked for a taxi to that destination, okay? Every single time when the taxi came and I went into the taxi, the driver always got out of the car, he went into the reception, he talked with the staff, and then he came back. Probably they agreed on the price, or I guess they were taking a commission. And they also take a commission out of everything. Like if you book a table, let's say at a day bar restaurant, and you book it through your hotel, the staff at the hotel takes a commission. Because I found that the first day that I got to the hotel and I got to Tulum, I asked for a taxi. I just asked for a taxi for the beach, and the receptionist, he was kind of pushy. Yeah, but where are you going? In which club? And I'm like, yeah, I want to see. It's my first day. I want to take a walk and take a look and decide then. And he was like, oh, you need a reservation. And I was like, probably I'm going to Tantra. And he literally picked up the phone and he tried to make a reservation without me asking him to do so. And he was like, I'm gonna make a reservation for you. And I'm like, no, please no, because I want to take a look. It's my first day. I want to take a look and take a walk, and then I will decide. And then I didn't make a reservation. But it seemed like a kind of push for me to make a reservation. It was my first day. It was daytime. I just wanted to see the beach for the first day, and I didn't have any plans. So yeah, that was kind of weird. And like every single time, can anyone explain this to me? Every single time, like when a taxi comes to pick you up, they usually pick you up and they start driving, but it never happened. Ever, not a single time. Every time I called a taxi from the reception of the hotel, the taxi driver would get out of the car, get into the reception, talk with the staff, the employees, and then he got back and began driving. So that's why I assume they take a commission or something like that. Oh my god, the next one. I know a lot of people will disagree with that, but it was just a vibe. It was just a feeling. I'm gonna say it. Cenotes are not a fun thing to do. It is not a fun thing to do at all. Especially Cenote Calavera, which is like a scalp. It is literally like 3 holes, which is kind of scary. Explain to me, how is that? And if you know a bit of history, like I don't know much of history, but I know what the Mayans did. All these horrible things that they did. They sacrificed people. They did human sacrifices while they were alive. They ripped off their hearts, and yeah, I'm not gonna go ahead. Just look it up. So the Mayans used to drop people there. People have died there in the cenotes, and you use these cenotes for kids and for fun. How is that fun? By the time I got into Cenote Calavera, I had that weird feeling, like I felt that weird energy, like I can't explain. Not just people and animals. Can you imagine how many animals were on it? Because there are woods, there's a forest around the cenotes. So can you imagine how many animals and humans have died in there? And not just accidentally, because there was another strange thing that happened while I was in Cenote Calavera. There were a bunch of tourists like diving into the cenote, and at some point 2 divers came, and I guess they were from the army or police. I guess they were from the army, like with some sort of equipment, and they dived right into the cenote. They stopped the tourists from diving in the cenote. These 2 men dived into the cenote, and they were looking for something, someone, I don't know. That was hella weird. They were looking for something like for 10 minutes, and then they got out and left. So who knows what happens in these cenotes, not just in the past, which is again, it's kind of heartbreaking, like to swim where people have died and suffered, but even nowadays, because what can anyone explain to me? If you're Mexican, please explain to me, what were these 2 divers looking for in the cenote, inside Cenote Calavera? What were they looking for in that hole that we were having fun and diving in, and it was full of tourists? The next thing is that they push drug selling even in luxury restaurants and luxury clubs. That was mind-blowing for me. Like, I pay an arm and a leg to come to this fancy place, this fancy restaurant, which was nice. Like, I had such a great time at Rosa Negra. Yes, I'm talking about Rosa Negra. It was such an amazing bar, amazing service, amazing food, and the show was perfect, and the partying as well. But outside the restrooms, there were a bunch of people that were selling drugs, and they were like trying to convince you to buy drugs, like, You're not doing drugs? What are you into? Just a killer? Oh, come on, don't be like that. Like, buy from me. There was that vibe everywhere. And I mean, I get it because it's Mexico, but inside bar restaurants, expensive bar restaurants, fancy restaurants, in my opinion, that was mind-blowing. How do they allow it? But I guess they don't have a choice. And the next thing is that they charge for snorkeling. And I was mind blown because I thought that snorkeling was for free. In this beach, like I'm talking about the northern part of the beach where the water was not clear at all, I have no idea what you paid for. Like they took you on a boat and they just dropped you there and enjoy some snorkeling. So I'm not sure, like snorkeling, like in this water that you can't see a thing, this blurry water full of seaweed, I wouldn't pay for that. But yeah, let me know what you think and what you wish you knew before going to Tulum.